name is Heather Pancoast, and I am one of the directors here at the Gator Wesley Foundation. I'm so excited tonight to be able to share with you this week's episode of Questions and Conversations, where I had the opportunity to be in conversation with Reverend Vidalis Lopez. She is a pastor down at Coral Springs United Methodist Church, First United Methodist Church of Coral Springs. And she is going to be talking with us tonight about the question, does God forgive and forget? And we're really so fortunate to be able to spend this time with her and dive into this question of forgiveness. I believe that in my years as a campus minister, this question of forgiveness is one that comes up over and over and over again. How do I forgive someone else who's hurt me? Does God forgive and forget? Can God forgive me? What if I can't forgive myself? All of these are questions that Vidalis is going to help us explore tonight. So I really, really hope that you'll join us. Take some time and listen in. Have a great night. Hello, Gator Wesley. My name is Heather Pancoast. I'm one of the co-directors here at our campus ministry. And I'm so excited to be with you on this Sunday evening as we talk with my friend, Reverend Vidalis Lopez. She is going to tell you a little bit about herself in just a minute, but want to just remind you that this is one of our teaching series and our Questions and Conversations series this summer, where we're asking friends and people with wisdom and experience to share with us their understanding of some difficult questions as we have conversation together. So I'm so excited to be here, and I'm going to ask Vidalis if she will introduce herself to you guys.
Thanks, Heather. Hi, everyone. I'm very grateful for the opportunity that Heather has offered me, inviting me to be part of your community. So thank you. Thanks to all of you. Heather, again, thanks for inviting me.
Of course.
I am serving currently in Coral Springs here in South Florida, and I just celebrated a year in this particular church. I am a proud mother of two girls. One is 13 and the other is 5 years old, Isabel and Elena. David is my husband. We celebrated 16 years in April, and we met in 1999 while I was in the summer of my freshman year while I was at Florida Southern College. And I wanted to share that who makes my family, basically to let you know from the get-go that these are the folks that really inspire me to do the best I can to work with my own stuff and my baggage when it comes to healing and forgiveness. And these are the people that I feel moved to hold myself accountable for whatever I'm going to say, in my case, to my girls, of the hope of moving on and things about forgiveness. If I believe it to be true, I want to be able to say it and practice it. So I tell you a little bit about my family because for me, those are the folks that really inspire me to hopefully do the best that I can be, or the best version of myself. So glad to be with you guys.
Yeah, thank you so much, Vidalis. And for those of you that are camp people, Vidalis and I met,
yes,
I think it was 1999 or 1998 as counselors at the Warren Willis United Methodist Camp.
Heather was my boss.
I was her boss. She was a great employee. I know most of you were not born in 1998 and 1990. They're great years. They're great little years. So we're going to start tonight with this question, and it's going to kind of guide our conversation. And the question is this: does God forgive and forget?
Okay, so let's go to the deep stuff quickly, right?
Yeah.
So again, let me set this up. I am not an expert in understanding, or better yet, living out forgiveness in its most ideal, perfect way forward. But I'll tell you this, I guess I can say I'm an expert in needing a whole lot of forgiveness. Okay. So whatever I share with you guys, and Heather, whatever I share, I just want you all to know that it's more of, this is what I strive for or try on a regular basis. And this is what yes, I do talk about, considering my role as a pastor, but I hope that this time that I'm with you guys, I really want to make it about, this is what I try on a regular basis. So does God forgive and forget? That was the question.
Mm-hmm. It's
So
easy, right?
yeah. Before I get to talking about how I understand God's forgiveness, I think I want to share a little bit of how I actually don't put those two concepts together.
Okay.
So I want to maybe explore and invite you all to think about what forgiveness can look like or mean, and then what forgetfulness or forgetting includes. So with that in mind, imagine, maybe take yourself back when you were 8, 9 years old, or just imagine a kid in line waiting for, at the food truck or the ice cream shop, whatever, but they're in line and another kid comes and cuts them off in front of them. Mm. You're upset and you say, hey, what are you doing? This is not that's not your spot. I belong here. The kid seems genuine. For whatever reason, didn't realize that. Oh, my bad. Ask for forgiveness. In other words, you say, don't worry about it. And they remove themselves from the line and from what they did, their misbehavior, their misconduct. And then imagine a few minutes later, they come back and do it again. Mm. And you go through the same motions and they say, my bad, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. And again, as an act of asking for forgiveness, and then they go. And then imagine that repeating over and over again. Well, that would be possible if with the concept of forgetfulness. As a person who has granted the forgiveness, if forgiveness is defined by forgetting it, then I guess I can stand in line, or that kid should stand in line endlessly, because he or she is forgetting every single time. Or the person who's done the misbehaving by skipping in line, if I'm going to define forgiveness through the lens of forgetting, then of course I'm going to keep coming back to the line, cutting, doing the wrong thing because I'm forgetting. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So do you see? And now that's a simple, innocent, almost, however, very true, because I think all of us have gone through that. An example of how it sounds pretty and it sounds very romantic even, and it tries to answer the definition of forgiveness in a very deep and genuine way. But forgetfulness or forgetting would only provoke potentially the repetition of the feeling of betrayal, hurt, etc. Now I want you to imagine actual situations very personal to you, to us, globally speaking, or very individually driven. Can you imagine having to the possibility of forgetting, and what would that mean for those things that happen to you or that you do upon others? So I hope that that's a way for all of us to explore how this notion of forgive and forget should really be dismantled. So what really should be thought about are the concepts of awareness. I don't like to necessarily forget entirely or incorrectly, and I'll unpack that later, but because then it really takes away the goodness in being aware. We talk about awareness all the time. Be self-aware, know who you are, know your strengths, know your weaknesses. But if I'm not even aware of what's happening because I'm forgetting, then I'm talking about then I don't have a value, or I don't value, excuse me, the concept of awareness.
Mm-hmm.
Awareness of what? That there's a wound,
Right.
that there's pain, that there's something, a hurt, a betrayal, a rejection, whatever it means. I'm aware that something happened. And then the awareness leads into, and it hurts. It's, it's bothering me. I feel it, I sense it, or I see it, which then that awareness and that actual raw, true feeling that there's something bothering me or hurting, then that leads me to the question, what can I do with this? So this is where it's not about forgetting unless we talk about suppressing, right? Or putting it off for later, which is something very common. I'm not a doctor or an expert. I've been to counseling myself for the sake of needing to forgive and be forgiven. And it's very common, by the way, guys, to realize what things that happen in our childhood, very formative years, for whatever reason, they can be suppressed. So I looked up for this chat with Heather, a few definitions of what suppressing means. And the connotations included cover up, muscling,
Wow.
concealing, filing away somewhere in my hard drive. But the hard drive is there.
Mm-hmm.
So you see, at some point, forgetting can't be part of the way forward or the answer. But forgiving, true forgiveness, maybe it's what we need to say. I think it's more about awareness, feeling that, working through it, and then the question, do I need to renew it? Does it need to be restored? Is there any hope for repairing? And or should I release it? Let it go, release it. So releasing is what I hope that we can talk about much more than the idea of forgetting. So I do believe God definitely forgives, because God is about restoring, repairing, all those church or biblical terms like redeeming and releasing. But I hope that it is okay for us to find relief and peace, to know that it doesn't need to be forgotten in order to be forgiven.
Sorry, bad timing for the sneeze there. This is real. This is just how we live in this time. We sneeze, we take sips of coffee, and we forgive each other.
I was just going to say that, and I'm taking a sip.
Well, I think there's something really powerful about the idea too when you talk about being aware and recognizing your woundedness or your hurt, and that takes such courage and vulnerability to do that, because it often means we have to experience the hurt, which no one really wants to do. And so that repressing or suppressing or muzzling or concealing is so tempting. We can allow ourselves to the freedom from not experiencing that pain again. And so you mentioned counseling, and I think that when there have been deep wounds and hurts in our lives, it is important to seek help in becoming aware of those, because it can be painful. To bring those back to the surface, to take them out of the hard drive and look at them and own them. And so I just want to say that, because I think sometimes I'll say sometimes I have thoughts, well, I can manage that on my own. I can deal with this. And it really has taken a counselor, a good friend, a pastor, to help me process and become aware of that pain in a healthy way.
In 2015, let me just share a little bit of personal illustration here. My father passed away terminal illness, and we had a good relationship. And I haven't had as healthy or consistent of a relationship with my mom. It's been more of a complicated journey. And I had this thing, and again, this is going to sound really, I don't know, maybe mean, but I always thought, considering that there's a 20-year gap, by the way, between my father and my mother, I always thought that my mom would go first. Mm. And health-wise, she's always been healthier, and then our family gets shocked with my dad's abrupt, sudden terminal cancer. Da, da, da. And so a matter of weeks, right after I moved to South Florida, Coral Gables and Miami, he passes. So then I had to deal, of course, help and be there, and the new journey with my mom and grieving through that. And because I was grieving, as I should be, the loss of my father, all these things that I had suppressed and things that I knew were there, but I didn't want to deal with, because that meant I had to work it out with another family member. I went to counseling for a while, and it was painful. It was surgery. It felt like I didn't have anesthesia throughout the whole thing. And it was exhausting. And I want to say this to the Gator Foundation, right? Kind of demographic. I was in my late 30s. Look, I think back when I was in college, I didn't have the money for that. It's expensive. Counseling is expensive, very expensive. The good ones, extremely too expensive. But I didn't have the money in college. I didn't know. I really, really did not know what I was yet to figure out or need to figure out. I didn't know. And I was too busy. I really was too busy. More often than not, I had to survive from going to school and then go to work and then figure out. And Heather, when she used to be my boss, she didn't pay me that well. I mean, as a Warren Willis, I mean, what's up with that? But in seriousness, I didn't have time. So I wanted to say this. When I went through counseling, it was in my late 30s. And I wouldn't be surprised if many of you think this would be ideal, but I can't do it. And I get that. But the more we name it and at least bring it to the surface, I do think that the more genuine the conversations can be with whoever is in your support system. Gator Wesley, maybe you can go to a counselor at school or whatever, but again, it is very important, and most of us need it, if not all, at some point. Christians in particular, because we do believe in love, because we do believe in redemption. So when it's not working out for us, I think for Christians, it adds another layer of guilt. If I am a good Christian, why am I grappling with so much anger, betrayal, or whatever it is? Because we're Christians and we claim to stand by certain principles that are true, but they're just extremely hard. And they're meant to be worked through the entire journey called life. And
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so I wonder, with the concepts that you've given us around forgiving and releasing, or forgetting and forgiving and forgetting, do you think it's possible for humans to forgive if we can't forget without forgetting? Do you think it's possible to do that, to forgive?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm not just an optimist person. I do hope a lot, and I hope that we can hope deeply, but I really mean it, Heather. Absolutely. It's extremely hard, and it's a choice, So always mess with it from an invitational standpoint, not an ultimatum, because immediately we jump into the guilt.
Mm.
But always 7 times 777, whatever, infinitely. It's always a choice, and it's always pretty hard.
Mm.
And one of the things that surprised me, Heather, when I went through counseling and I worked through certain things with the therapist, again, because I'm still learning about life, this is in 2015, now we're in 2020. There are times that things come up and my wound kind of feels like it's opening again.
Mm.
And to my surprise, very recent, why am I feeling like I'm resenting again? Did I not forgive the first time, the second or the third or the fourth? And then again, reading, talking with persons. I do like to read. It is a responsibility of mine in particular to be to learn and discern for the sake of my peers.
Mm.
That, recently I discovered, because it's very dynamic and fluid. And I do probably have to forgive the same thing or similar things over and over again. Why? Because I don't forget, right?
Yeah.
Don't forget. Because we have triggers, because we have a hard drive called memory. Because there's this thing that I wish I could forget, but there's something good about not forgetting because it helps to protect myself too, though, right? I'm protecting, I can get the tricks and I understand something's creeping up again. So that's when the choice comes up. Mm-hmm. Do I let it fester? Do I react with it and to it? Or do I respond? So here's why I think it's possible also. That was a more pragmatic response, Heather. But I do think it's possible because I choose to believe that I was created in the image of God. And once any person and every person wants to at least explore what I think is true. Yes, I do think that's true, that every single human being is created in the image of God. So then that begs the question, what is Jesus or what is God like? Mm. Well, the virtues of God: love, hope, generosity, freedom, liberty, kindness, empathy. So if I want to believe that I'm created in the image of God, then I want to explore, do I have the capacity to be empathetic to myself and to the other, to love myself and the other? And you see, and now I start filling the blanks, to myself and to the other. So from a biblical standpoint or from a Christian standpoint, I believe it's possible as long as I believe that I'm created in the image of God. I believe it's possible if I believe that Jesus Christ, kind of like the face of God, Jesus, when I think of his time on earth, but when I think of Jesus and the liberation and the redeeming kind of story that we hear or we learned about Jesus, the empowerment behind that, and I'll share a verse if that's okay with you, kind of like pocket, keep it with you kind of verse. Maybe you're familiar with Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Or I can endure all things with the power of God or of Christ who will give me the strength. So this is not just one of those cute romanticized verses of I can go skydiving, which you can do that. won't, but you can.
Yeah.
But those are the kind of verses that when I've hit rock bottom, or the pain is too much, the betrayal has gone too far, too many times, and the heart is that broken and that frail, and I really can't do it alone. That's when the invitation comes. I can't, but can I endure? Or now let's personalize it. Can I forgive these things with the power of Christ, who will give me the strength? Because after all, I'm created in the image of God.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. And I really appreciate the fact that you point out that it is not a static one-time. Forgiveness doesn't just necessarily occur today and then I'm done having to forgive for that situation. That it's fluid, and that things will remind us and it will come back up. Also, there's the reality that, when I think about a situation in my life with a family member that I have had to choose to forgive, there's also the reality that that person might hurt you again. And that it may be other things that you have to choose to forgive down the road. And so I think that's really important that we remember, because I know in my life, I have felt guilt when I've thought, why am I still angry? I thought I dealt with this. I gave this to God. I forgave this person, but yet something happens that triggers me and I still feel those emotions come up, those memories resurface. So I really appreciate that imagery of relying on the strength of Christ within us to offer forgiveness.
And by the way, sometimes we do need to stay away from certain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's where the empowerment comes. I repair through forgiveness in the sense of you're no longer going to get a hold of me or keep me chained to your misdoing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to release myself from that by releasing you. And even in our family dynamics, which for me, in a personal level, I relate to that to an extent. Believe me, I have to have quite a few boundaries. And it's sad. And I think it'll always be sad. That will always be something to, what a shame that this is this is the best way forward. Mm-hmm. There's forgiveness between you and me, but the truth is, seeing each other often, maybe a former relationship in the sense of romantic, right? Or even family, depending on the situation, right? Spiritual, emotional abuse, or whatever it may be. I'm releasing. And what we need between that and me is space. So again, sometimes repair is releasing. Sometimes repair does look like we can actually come back together and move on together. Mm-hmm. But sometimes releasing is, and I'll kind of allude to another text, maybe biblical for some of us who want to look it up. Sometimes forgiveness looks like you're going to be on the west and I'm going to be on the east side. Mm-hmm. So I do, want to make sure that we can give ourselves space to releasing may also be part of your story, guys.
Yeah, boundaries are important. Important. So Vidalis, talk to us a little bit about what may happen when someone tries to forget, suppress it, right, in order to forgive it. Or not to forgive it. What happens to us when we do suppress it, when we do stuff it in order to deal with it?
Yeah. So one way that that really taught me life, when I graduated from Florida Southern oh my gosh, sorry, 99? No. That's when I went in. 2002. I'm not that old. 2002, I graduated. And I went, I graduated on a Saturday. And I went to my first day on the job big girl kind of job on that following Monday. I was really blessed. And I was a social worker. I was a child protective investigator in Polk County in Lakeland, Florida. And I was ready to save a child one case at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was, my role as the whole CPI thing was when alleged report comes through the 1-800, then the CPI is called and we go and do the initial assessment. Typically, that means I would interview the child or the victim, minor or an elder. And then part of my investigation is to also interview and assess the setting and in conversation assess the alleged perpetrators. But again, the focus is on the victim.
Mm.
And I gotta tell you, Heather, that's when my faith was tested, and my heart started getting quite hardened. When I would go on a daily basis to address the abuse that is a reality of many, many, many children. And unfortunately, it felt to me, and I really think looking back, honestly, it's not just self-pity, but unfortunately, because of just how the system works and all that, I don't know that I really helped a lot of those kids. I helped some, I did retrieve some of imminent danger. I pulled them and put them in a strange place. I don't know, and then I had to take out that information and then expose it and then go to court. It was a very difficult time. And I remember, Heather, little by little, hating abusive parents. Years later, I just I change. I feel that God is nudging me to more full-time ministry. And years later, I started doing jail ministry. Right, so I went to the jails to do weekend retreats, and that's when I started to talk and do some talks and conversations around the table with mothers. Fathers too, but I did mostly the women's weekends kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I gotta tell you, when I went in, I was already going with, you deserve to be here.
Mm.
And forgive me, but like rot in hell.
Mm-hmm.
Believe kind of settings are pretty close to hell.
Yeah.
Like really. And then their testimonies, by the way, consequences and there's consequences to be paid and to be rectified. I get that. But when I started seeing the human side of it, and how, because those persons did not forget their own abuse and got it treated, did not release, did not have the ways to repair what was festered in their hearts and in their very beings, what was poured into them when they didn't have a choice, whatever was poisoned into them over and over again, then became their norm.
Mm.
And that's exactly what they were pouring out to their own kids.
Yeah.
Oh man, Heather, did that really, so I needed counseling then.
Yeah.
For myself, and to really understand better what God's love and redemption looks like. What happens when we try to forget, or we just realize for whatever reason, with intention or not, that we don't work with it or work at it, work through it, it destroys us. I mean, if you want to forget everything else that we've talked today, please, it's a dead end.
Mm.
It's going to catch up with you.
Yeah.
It's going to hurt you. It really is going to compromise who you really meant to be in this world. As a girlfriend, as a boyfriend, as a husband, as a wife, as an auntie, as a niece, as a mother, as a best friend, as a lawyer, whatever vocation we're trying to get to. It's a dead end. It's self-destructive. Because for me, Heather, and I'll kind of segue maybe as another way to understanding forgiveness, because forgiveness, we are invited to see it as a way of healing.
Mm.
And healing is wonderful, right? Healing is a good thing. Healing is a good thing. So I don't need to even try and forget. I don't want to stay wounded. We don't want to stay hurt and in a rut.
Mm-hmm.
We want to heal. So let's not try to forget. One, because it's a waste of time, but it's a self-destructive approach. But healing, even if it includes painful surgery and process and et cetera, healing means that it's something good is going to come out of it.
Mm-hmm.
The scar may be there to remind me. I have this scar because I fell because I didn't follow my mom's directions, but it reminds me. And now I can tell my daughters, be careful if you're going to run with socks on. You can tell. I don't know. But it helps us to live the best version of ourselves. It's a tool for life, guys. You're going to need it. If you think marriage is part of your story, if you think parenthood is part of your story, if you think that you're going to be someday someone's employee, if not already, if you think one day you're going to be an employer, if not already, healing is part of the life journey. And I believe that you were created to be that kind of vessel for those people that you love and for those that we struggle with liking, but to release them.
Yeah.
It's self-destructive. It paralyzes us. It holds you back. It holds you back. Because I need you to imagine, because I think you already go through this, you know what it's like to not be able to fall asleep because it keeps replaying in your mind. Yeah.
Last night.
Oh, yep. Over and over again. And then guilt. And then you make it yourself. And then there's shame. So I'm muscling my opportunity to release it. And I'm only festering that I am doing all of this. And before you know it, even those things that were inflicted upon you, now you even took it upon yourself to think it was yours to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah. So transitioning just a little bit, because we've talked about our ability to forgive and to release and to repair and find healing. Let's talk a little bit about how God's forgiveness works.
So I will invite you to explore that, maybe through the face of Jesus. So I'm thinking about the Gospels, maybe Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. Anyway, but one of those that kind of gives a narrative when Jesus was on earth. And I want you to think of Jesus as the face, as the package, the tangible or palpable package of who God is. Mm-hmm. So with that in mind, well, Jesus came down. God became flesh, came down from the perfect, no need for healing because all is beautiful and dandy. And he came down to be part of the mess. Think about that. Think about the stories that maybe some of us can remember. There's this one about he goes and meets this woman at a well. There's this other story of Jesus going about his business on his way to this city. And he looks up, and there's this guy up in a tree wanting to see Jesus. And Jesus asked him to come down. Oh my gosh, there's stories about when Jesus, again, was walking towards something that he had to do, preach and teach. But there was this guy who was limping and was rejected because of his illnesses and just whatever he was, how people identified him. Mm-hmm. And Jesus really stopped and went to the guy and talked to him. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, those are just some stories. I'm not giving you the whole story, but again, just kind of picture there was a woman there, there's this other guy, there's this limping guy, there's this whatever. People that were needing something. Mm. They were healing. And the biblical narrative tells us that Jesus actually took the time and stopped and reached out. And the stories, all of them tell us how Jesus had a conversation, which is what happens in therapy, by the way. I'm going to plug that in, spiritual a conversation. But the way Jesus did it, guys, wasn't just dirty laundry, taking all of their laundry and just, shaming the person. No. Story, if you were to ever explore it, or if you haven't already, it tells how Jesus shows so much compassion and love. And yes, and the sins or the hurt or both are being revealed, right? He starts kind of doing a whole lot of questions, and then the girl's kind of like, what are you talking about? And then it starts coming out in a conversation, heart to heart, eye to eye, naming it. And then when the sin or the hurt or the messiness and the grossness is revealed, the shame maybe? No. And then the story tells us that Jesus will say things like, I forgive you. I'm going to heal you. Mm-hmm. Your sin is forgiven. Jesus said many times, actually stand up. You can now walk. Mm-hmm. In other words, you can move forward. You're not paralyzed. You can go live your life. Metaphorically and literally, guys. It's just beautiful stories. It talks about, okay, now you can speak. Before you were mute. There was this other story, but now you can speak. Speak what? Speak. Oh my gosh, speak whatever you're meant to speak in life, but go. Yeah. Every single time. The face of God through Jesus tells us that he went up to the person. He talked with the person. He reached out to the person. Then that trust began to be built, or the vulnerability was allowed. Mm. He made it, or invited the person to say it, which is a beautiful exercise of releasing, by the way. Mm-hmm. And then Jesus said, comforting truth. I love you. I forgive you. I heal you. Go ahead. So that's, I think, a key way for us to give it a shot with God. Mm. What it's like to believe that God forgives us. That's how God restores, right? We use the word redeem a lot, which if you want to just use the word repair. That's how you receive forgiveness from God. Mm. That's how God releases you from the weight of sin and guilt and shame and mistakes. He reaches out. So I hope that's helpful. I thought of the Psalm 103 verse 12. I have it here in case I was saying it wrong. Psalm 103 verses 12. This is the one, I'm dating myself again, which I think we already did, Heather, but casting crown days, that's east, west. So, guys, this is that verse that is known for many people. As far as east is from the west, mm-hmm. How far God has removed our sin, our mistakes, our whatever, fill in the blanks, from us. Like a parent feels compassion for their children, that's how the Lord feels compassion for those who want it.
It's beautiful. Beautiful. So as Christians then, as followers of Christ, why is it important for us to wrestle with this topic of forgiveness? Because it's a big topic. I mean, we could spend weeks wrestling with this. So why do you think it's important?
Weeks.
To do so. Weeks, months, our whole lives.
The whole time.
Lots of therapy sessions.
Yeah, maybe you should change your major, people. Because it's universal. Mm. Because no one is exempt of this need and reality. It's universal. And please try to picture that. Every single human being that has lived on this earth, generations past, what is the population now? 6 billion people, right?
A lot.
Now, so think of those before us. Think of our 6 billion you and I are part of. Think of the days, the years ahead, way that we're beyond us. And again, let me say it again, and it's a universal need. It's universal, and at the same time, it's completely personal.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's important to know that all of us need this one thing, among many other things, but this is one that all of us can relate to. All of us need healing. All of us need forgiveness. All of us. So for Christians, since I believe that we should actually worry in the sense of prioritizing, because I don't think it's an idea of worrying, but I don't like when people feel, and there was a time, by the way, folks, that in the Christian church, there was a time before us when, in order for people to explore the notion of being a follower of Jesus, then you had to answer the question, if you were to die today, where would you go? Mm. So there was that worry approach to that. So I wouldn't worry about that as much as I would want to know that on this side of heaven, life begins now. Mm. Christians, we don't believe in one life and only one life. We believe in eternity, right? So this life matters. And then one day, eternal life. But this side of heaven, because it's a universal and personal reality, I do think it's a responsibility, but it's wonderful. It's a sense of accountability, not ultimatum, guys. Accountability. When I choose to believe that I am made in the image of God, and when I choose to believe that I can be a follower of Jesus Christ, then I choose to believe that I represent God. Mm-hmm. If I believe in God, then I'm choosing to believe that I want to represent Jesus Christ, in God. So, as a Christian, as a follower of God, as a follower of Christ, for something that I already know is hard, even when I am a believer of the one who can repair and help me, imagine what it's like for a person who's yet to encounter such constant release. Sometimes we have a hard time believing there is a God, because in the current reality, the faces of God we can do a better job at showing such light and salt. Mm-hmm. Right? Again, I am a Christian. I'm a pastor. Oh my goodness. And I am relief. I am relief. I still struggle at times, but I'm relief to know that the truth withstands. God is love, and God forgives, and God releases me of that. So I'm going to always go back to the truth. I chose that. I'm going to always go back to truth. So it does make a difference at night for me, more nights than not. It does. When I don't have that, it's like it's beyond a rut, Heather. It's like an abyss. Mm. It's falling and you never hit rock bottom because it's an abyss.
Mm.
I'd rather hit rock bottom.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, so again, that's kind of the identity. I thought about the Lord's Prayer. There's that part, forgive us our trespasses and forgive those who trespass against. Again, be careful on thinking this is not to mean that God's love and forgiveness is conditional based on my imperfect approach of forgiving, right? I don't drive this whole thing. God does, right? So it's not that there's a condition for God's faithfulness. Mm-mm. But if I was to look at the meaning behind it, it's accountability. If I know what it's like to be forgiven and released by God, and it's a process, and it's, I mean, I want to be able to say in my prayer, yeah, forgive me as I will also continue to strive to forgive others so I can be repaired and or release them from me. Yeah. It's just how we define forgiveness that in that prayer.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's got me thinking, because we've spent some time today talking about our forgiveness of other people and God's forgiveness of us. And the last question I think is so important, because I hear students say this to me all the time, which is, how can I expect God to forgive me when I can't forgive myself? When I'm holding on to anger, frustration, hurt towards myself. And so how do you think that our willingness to forgive ourselves impacts how we are able to receive God's forgiveness?
You know, I think I'm going to use a word that Heather just used, the willingness. May we always be willing to try. And I'll tell you this, sometimes that won't feel enough. I'm willing, but I just can't. Guys, that just means today is raw. That moment, or that season, by the way, sometimes it's like a year. I mean, it's one of those when you look back, 2019 was a bad year, right? 2023, you'll maybe remember, oh, that was a bad year. I hit rock bottom. I mean, it's not just an overnight thing, but the key is the willingness to hold on, even through the moments when it does not feel like God is forgiving you. I can believe something. I can believe the air is real and still feel yucky about myself, right? I can have both, right? So I will stand by I will hold on to the truth if that's my choice. Again, this is all about choice, right? Otherwise, it's guilt. It's not ultimatum. It's a choice. And remember, it's a lifelong journey. So may we not be surprised that why does it sometimes come back intense? There are times, Heather, I've been out of social work for quite a few years now. There have been a few movies that almost led to a panic attack because there was a scene and a trigger, physically speaking. Physically, my body reacted. And I share that as a person who struggled in a vocational standpoint. Imagine when we're going through things like very personal, inflicted upon ourselves or inflicted by another. Our body reminds us, our emotions, our minds, our spirit reminds us. So to believe that because we decided to be on the forgiving side of life doesn't mean that you're not going to feel every now and then certain reminders. Those are bad moments. Those are hard moments. Those are moments I just hope that's when a good friend comes in handy. Okay. That is when, I'm not kidding, I know my go-tos. I have my person. I have my, I know this is going to sound funny, but bear with me. I have my ice cream flavor. No, but you see what I mean? It's one of those.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm having one of those moments. Can we meet up at such and such coffee shop, or can you come over? Or if you're living with a person already, can I got to release it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the willingness to believe that God is not done with you.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that not, God's never done with us? There's more to you. So the willingness to believe, give it a shot over and over again, that you are created in the image of God. You have the capability to forgive yourself. When we struggle with doing that, there are days, Heather, that I will own this. I choose not to forgive today. I'm not ready. I know I'm going to get over it, but right now I want to fester in this.
Yeah.
Because you and I know, and we didn't go into this today because this is a big topic, because I want revenge. That's another topic.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The opposite of release is revenge.
Yeah. I want them to feel the pain that I
want to feel the pain.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that we are going to hurt ourselves most, but I'm willing to go through that as long as he or she feels a little bit pain, right?
Yeah.
Let's be okay. So I have my days when I say, nope, I'm not going to be the bigger person. I know it's the wrong thing. I know I'm not being mature and Christian, but you know what? I will admit I want him or her or they to suffer.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I get it. I think we all can say that's not the most mature, productive thing, but it's real.
Yeah.
So I just hope we have the grace and the time that when I cool off and I have my Moose Tracks ice cream and latte with almond milk and double shot of espresso, and that I can come back to my senses and get back on the train again of life journey. But please know, it's usually it's not a 5-minute thing. Yeah. It's not. And I want to reiterate this, Heather, if time allows, maybe won't, but if time allows, particularly for those who are in college and just really trying to make ends meet and work, it's really common for people to have to say, I will deal with that later. So, and I get that. There's a danger to that. I understand that. But at least then hold on to, if we're created in the image of God and we believe God is kindness and all those virtues, then I'd rather get back on the side of truth, hope, faith, and love.
Amen. Amen. Well, thank you so much, Fidelis, for this important conversation. It is, I think, in the time that I've been in campus ministry, probably the question of faith that comes up most frequently. Forgiveness, doubt would be another one. And so I want to encourage all of you that are listening tonight. You know, we've talked a lot about counseling, and any of you that spend any time around Gator Wesley know that Joel and I are huge advocates of all of us being in counseling. And so if you are interested in finding resources in our community, if you are unsure of where to begin, please reach out. We have resources for you. We can help walk you through that, because I honestly believe a lot of times the work of forgiveness is important to be done in community with someone else. And maybe, like Fidelis says, that's just your person over a pint of Moose Tracks, and that's good too. But please reach out and let us know if there's any help that we can be in connecting you with resources in your community. Fidelis, thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this, for your heart, for your story and your wisdom. We're just grateful I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for our
connection over all these years. I'm sorry I couldn't pay you more. I actually wasn't in charge of the pay, so I can't really even apologize. They still don't get paid anything either. But I'm thankful for you and your ministry, and just for giving us this time today.
Thank you so much. God bless everyone, and hold on and keep on.
Yeah, thank you.
I want to know you.